They say every subdivision has that one person who treats the HOA like it's their personal empire. In our case, that was Victor Hayes. This guy strutted around as if he were the sheriff, clipboard always at the ready, phone poised to capture any infraction. He wasn't chosen by vote or appointed by anyone. He just declared himself the neighborhood enforcer. But last week, he pushed too far, and Grandpa wasn't about to let it slide. Before we dive in, drop a comment with the country you're tuning in from. Let's see how far this tale spreads. It all began with the creak of our backyard fence at 5:30 a.m. I was half asleep, pouring cereal, when Grandpa, rocking in his chair on the porch, grumbled, "There he is again." Sure enough, there was Victor climbing over our fence like a thief, phone out, snapping pictures of Grandpa's tomato garden. His complaint? The plants were an insult to the neighborhood's aesthetic standards. Can you believe it? A 75-year-old veteran's tomatoes were somehow a threat to community pride. I was ready to rush out and confront him, but Grandpa raised a hand and said, "Hold on. Let a fool dig his own hole, and he'll bury himself in time." That was Grandpa's way, steady, composed, the opposite of Victor's frantic obsession. This wasn't Victor's first trespass. He'd been caught snooping around our shed twice before, once even rattling the lock like he expected to uncover contraband. Grandpa reported him to the HOA board, but the president, Susan Hart, waved it off with a smile. "Oh, Victor's just passionate. He loves this community." Passionate. The man was violating North Carolina's trespassing laws under NC General Stat Section 14 to 159.13. The HOA, though, sidestepped accountability, claiming it was internal enforcement. Grandpa wasn't buying it. He called the sheriff's office, but they explained the legal gray area. Without catching Victor red-handed and pressing charges on the spot, it was our word against his. That's when Grandpa devised his plan. For 3 days, he tinkered in the garage, whistling old country tunes while I fetched him tools. By day 4, our wrought iron gate had a new feature: low-voltage electric wiring, fully compliant with North Carolina's electrical code, complete with a bold yellow sign that read, "Warning, electrified gate. Trespassers will be shocked." Right on schedule, Victor came skulking back before sunrise. Grandpa sat on the porch, sipping his black coffee, while I crouched by the window, heart racing. Victor scaled the fence, boots crunching gravel, muttering about violations. The moment his gloved hand grabbed the gate, crack, a jolt hit him, and he yelped like a startled dog, tumbling backward into the dirt. He scrambled up, limping toward the street, arms flailing. Grandpa didn't budge. He just leaned back, eyes gleaming, and said softly, "That's the sound of justice." The neighborhood was buzzing. Victor Hayes, hobbling down Maple Court, became the day's spectacle. Neighbors murmured in their driveways, barely hiding their chuckles as the self-proclaimed HOA enforcer tried to spin the story. He told anyone who'd listen that Grandpa had set up illegal traps. But most folks knew better. They'd seen Victor's antics, sneaking into yards, measuring lawns with a ruler, even peering through windows at night. The guy was a nuisance, and for once, he'd gotten what was coming. Still, Victor wasn't one to back down quietly. By midday, an emergency HOA meeting was called. I went with Grandpa to keep things civil, but I should have known it'd be a circus. Susan Hart, the HOA president, sat at the head of the table, pearls gleaming, fake smile fixed in place. Victor, to her right, sported a sling for dramatic flair, pointing at Grandpa like he'd cracked a case wide open. "This man," Victor proclaimed, "is a danger to our community. He's rigged a deadly electrified trap." Grandpa didn't flinch. He slid a folded paper across the table and said, "That, Mrs. Hart, is a permit issued under state electrical code. Fully legal, properly signed." And I posted the required warning. Susan tried to wriggle out of it. Legal or not, it's hostile. It violates the spirit of community harmony. The HOA can regulate such installations. Grandpa's voice dropped to that gravelly tone that always made me sit up straighter. Regulate? Fine. Trespass? No. North Carolina law calls entering private property without permission a crime. Victor's done it 3 times. I'm done with warnings. Next time, I'll press charges and let a judge settle it. The room's mood shifted. Neighbors who'd stayed quiet started nodding. One woman spoke up. "Victor was in my yard last month, measuring my bushes. I thought I was alone." Another added, He took pictures of my kids' bikes and called them an eyesore. The tide was turning, and Victor's face grew redder with every comment. Susan banged her gavel, scrambling to regain control. This isn't the place for accusations. We're here to discuss Mr. Wilson's, but Grandpa cut her off. No, ma'am. We're discussing Victor's fixation. You've let him act like he owns this neighborhood. And now he's learned what happens when you step on the wrong porch. If you're loving this HOA saga, hit like and subscribe. The story's about to get even wilder. Victor didn't take the public shaming well. For 2 days, he circled our block in his battered pickup like a vulture, slowing by our driveway as if daring the gate to open. Grandpa barely glanced at him, just sat on the porch with his old thermos, eyes sharp as ever. On the 3rd night, Victor couldn't resist. Just after midnight, I woke to rustling near the gate. Peering out, I saw him, flashlight in one hand, bolt cutters in the other, muttering curses. He was actually going to break in. Grandpa was ready, perched in his rocking chair. "Watch this," he whispered, pulling out a small remote. The second Victor's cutters clamped onto the gate, and Grandpa pressed the button. Zap! The wires hummed, and Victor jerked like he'd grabbed a wasp nest, yelping as he dropped the cutters and stumbled into the mud. Grandpa sipped his coffee, unfazed. "Trespassing again," he muttered, aiming his phone, already recording. Every stammer, every curse, every slip was captured in crisp 1080p. But Victor didn't quit. He yanked out his phone and dialed 911, shouting, "Attempted murder. This maniac's trying to kill me with an illegal fence." 5 minutes later, police lights flooded the yard. Officers stepped out, hands on holsters, eyeing Victor, muddy, shaking, clutching his arm, and Grandpa, sitting calmly like it was just another night. "Sir," an officer said to Grandpa, "is there an active electrical device on that gate?" "Yes," Grandpa answered evenly. "Permitted, registered, marked with warnings, and recorded. Here's the paperwork." He slid a laminated permit across the porch table without standing. Then he handed over his phone, video still rolling. The officers watched Victor climb, cut, and zap himself in high definition. One officer looked up, deadpan. "So you trespassed?" Victor sputtered. "No, I was inspecting for the HOA." "Inspecting?" the other officer said, eyebrow raised. "At midnight, with bolt cutters?" The law was crystal clear. Under state code, Victor was guilty of criminal trespass, vandalism, and attempted theft. His 911 call? That added a false police report to the list. They cuffed him right there, gate glowing behind him. Victor ranted about conspiracies, claiming Grandpa was a menace, but no one cared. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, weren't whispering anymore. They were clapping. Grandpa leaned back, gave me a nod, and said, "Sometimes, son, justice just needs a little spark." Victor sat in the cruiser, soaked in sweat, his reputation in tatters, his HOA badge stripped away. The gate he thought he could conquer became his undoing. Because when you cross a man like Grandpa, you don't just lose. You ignite the spark that brings your whole HOA empire crashing down.